22.
We know we are live. It's being live streamed. You can hit that button. Got it.
That's what I did last time. And okay.
Great.
Do we look different?
Yeah, I think so. We got a beautiful backgrounds. Thank you everybody for being here.
This is exciting. It's 2022 and we have some new changes we're going to tell you about. The first thing, we're excited. We have Amy Povah today, and she's from the Can Do Foundation, which is Justice Through Clemency. And she's got a personal story that she will be able to share that she went through, and
She's amazing.
Educate us on some other things that are really fascinating, things that you maybe just hear on the news or you have experienced yourself, but she's got a really great way of just summarizing it and teaching
She's a beautiful human.
about things. She had a 24-year sentence for the most frustrating story, one of the frustrating stories that we've heard.
Yeah.
She was able to only serve 9 of those years.
And when you say only,
I don't mean only, I mean the rock star powerhouse girl that she is, advocated for herself to get out in just a little over 9 years. She wrote an article to Glamour magazine, which would be your dream, that got published, and it helped her get her story out there and receive clemency from President Clinton. So exciting.
Yes.
But before we get to Amy Povah, let's talk about a couple changes for the Freedom Exchange Project.
We look fancy
in 2022.
We're in a new studio.
My goodness, we are in a studio. Do you see this beautiful
background?
Boom. Can you see it all? We are in downtown Ashland, Oregon, in a gorgeous, so amazing studio with more amazing people helping us out. Precious, who is the owner of this beautiful establishment, and Sam Ewell.
Yeah.
Do we like to call him Sam?
Yeah, Sam. We love Sam.
He helped us with all of our tech stuff today. So for all of you people out there that love all of our tech glitches and think it's cute of us,
I think we're done.
We're done. So we're moving on up, people.
Yeah.
So before we keep
and
going.
Did we say the name of it? I think we said
Catalyst in Ashland, Oregon. Check it out. It's pretty awesome. And then we have one more really exciting thing. Do you want to talk about sponsors?
Yes, we are now, we have sponsors for every episode of our show. And our first sponsor we're super excited about is Outsider Coffee. Their mission is to wake people up to their greatness through daily inspirational calls to action so that they can love themselves and change their community. It sounds exactly like what we do. So we love Lindsay and EJ. Their website is outsider.coffee.com, and we will have all their information on our show notes too. So thank you guys so much for partnering with us.
It's fun to have our first sponsor be our people.
Yeah.
Like people that we know really well and that we've spent a lot of time with and cried with and worked out the world's problems
and
with.
That encouraged me from the very beginning. It has nothing to do with incarceration, and just saw the beauty in the mess. So thank you guys.
All of our messes.
I only have one.
I got some messes and they were right there for it. So thank you, Outsider Coffee. We're really happy and thankful for you right now. So I think I can't stand it anymore and we need to bring her in.
First, I want to say one thing.
I know
what
it's
the Freedom Exchange.
I know what it's going to be.
So the Freedom Exchange, I'm Christy Lashover, and this is Allison Hammock, and it was born out of a desire to create awareness and have really amazing conversations with beautiful people that have been impacted by the criminal legal system, whether they've been inside or not, and just fighting for people. I always talk about having no idea that anyone was ever fighting for us inside, but there are tons of people doing that. So we have them on our show. So thank you guys for being here. And now we're going to have Amy come in.
Get ready.
Look how good we did.
Here she comes. Hi, Amy.
Hi.
Welcome to the Freedom Exchange Project, first guest of 2022.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you both for having me, Christy and Allison. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Back at you. We love to start our year off with a powerhouse girl like you, and I can't wait to have this conversation because I know you're going to be helpful for me to understand some things better, and for our viewers. And just your story is one of those stories that we all want to get frustrated with and shake, and know that you're just one of many people that have had to experience the things that you have. So I can't wait to get into that. But I feel like the first way, are we ready to start?
Yes,
We
let's
are.
talk to Amy.
I don't want to
yeah.
get all like serious because I'm so excited, but her story needs to be shared.
Well, the cool thing is too, I'm going to say when I was in LA, I called her, I said, hey, where do you live? Because I'm near LA. I want to come see you. And that's the coolest thing is when you meet somebody in person that you know online, and we know through the King but you see people online and you're like, wow, they're amazing people. You want to meet them. And, you were just as amazing in person. We had a really yummy lunch at this funky artsy Topeka Canyon. And I was thinking, wow, there's this woman doing so much work, like relentless work. So I just want to say thank you for that.
No, thank you. Thank you. That was fun. And we're going to get together again.
You were texting me and I was jealous.
I know. I said, sorry, you're not
Look,
here.
she was like taking a picture of the two of you. Look where I am. I'm like, that's not fair.
Next time you'll be there.
So Amy, let's get started and just sort of lay the foundation for our conversation. If you could share what is the Can Do Foundation and how did it come to be?
Okay, well, good question. I think I actually came up with the Can Do moniker when I was still in prison, which stands for Clemency for All Nonviolent Drug Offenders. That Can Do. And
I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Awesome.
Oh, really? Yeah. And so I did my roommate's clemency petition when we were still at FCI Dublin. And she was an Asian lady who had only taken a message and from a cooperating informant. There was nothing in the message to indicate there was drug dealing involved. It was just, will you tell your boyfriend to meet me in Chicago at a certain hotel at a certain time? She spoke English, her boyfriend did not, and they had not even been together for a very long period of time. She got out of a very, very abusive relationship with a man who she had 3 children with. And she was just the loveliest, sweetest person. Again, I'm digressing, but some of the best people that I met in prison. And we were roommates for years. And I looked at her PSI, which is a pre-sentence investigation report. And I'm like, wow, they can't even come up with anything negative to say about you. She worked in New York City at a sewing factory. She was a manager. And so, it even said in her pre-sentence report that, wow, this seems like a harsh sentence, 17 and a half years for passing on a message. But that's what the conspiracy law does to us. And that's the best kept secret, I feel, that the public still they can't really wrap their head around it. So I talk about it ad nausea. And to explain, if you do one thing to further a conspiracy, one step, they call it an overt act. Even if it's a legal act, there's nothing illegal about taking a message and conveying that message to your boyfriend. They say that you are now a co-conspirator. And so she, again, had 17 and a half years. I got out July 7th of 2000. And Glamour magazine that covered my story came to the house in Arkansas. I was with my parents and did a follow-up on my clemency. And so I really wanted them to write about her story in there. And I had some connections with the Clinton administration because 2 senators from Arkansas were determined to get me home before he left office. And so they gave me the name of somebody at the White House, Meredith Cabe. And I just, did the best I can to share some additional names. Chin was her name, was one of them. And she got out at the end of his presidency. And I maybe had a lofty opinion that I had figured out the recipe to get people home. But first of all, Al Gore didn't win. And during the Bush administration, it was kind of quiet on the clemency front. So long story short, I did a documentary about marijuana because I felt like I was spinning my wheels and I wasn't accomplishing anything. And I think what you're doing, all of us are trying to be like that little piece in the mosaic puzzle. Like, how can I fit in and share what happened to me to try to help, really to help end it happening for other people. And no matter what the crime was, doesn't have to be drugs. And so when Obama launched Clemency Project 2014, I had just finished the film and I was invited to DC to the dinner kickoff. And I won't keep talking, but that's how, I'd already started the Can Do Foundation in 2004 when it became a 501c3. And so that kind of threw me in the spotlight when Obama had his clemency, because I think I was the only organization in the nation that my mission statement was clemency. Mm-hmm. So off we went, and we've kind of been nonstop ever since, because clemency has become sort of a household word now since Obama and Trump as well have focused on clemencies, and hopefully Biden will too soon.
We always compete for questions. So I have a question, because there's so many people inside. How do you stop?
I don't know.
How do you go to the beach? How do you do that?
Enjoy
with the thought
yourself.
that there's so many people still in.
That's a struggle. It really is. I overextended myself, especially during the Obama administration. My God, I mean, I've had over 120 people on my website on any given, like now I only have about 40, maybe 35. And, there's even attorneys, I mean, they don't take that many cases, but to be fair, a lot of the time I'm an advocate. I'm advocating for those individuals. Doesn't necessarily mean that I wrote their clemency petition. Some of them already have a clemency petition pending, but we'll review it. We'll sometimes amend it. And we've amended numerous petitions that didn't come home under the Trump administration. And I have a huge stack of mail over here. On here, you can't see it, but it's beginning to taper off. But I think one of the saddest things is that I literally get boxes of mail. And I hate to say this, is kind of embarrassing. And a lot of it is just never opened because I don't have the capacity to read the mail, respond to the mail. And as you know, we live in a society now where there's 15 portals where people can hit you up on Messenger, on Twitter, on core links. I communicate with people. My phone number is on the website. I get phone calls almost every week. And it's sad. It's really sad. I've had to tell everybody I'm not taking any more cases at this time. And it's hard. It's really hard, especially, well, I got an email just the other day, and it's another marijuana prisoner. And that's the one category that I'll make an exception for, because I work with several organizations that are helping the pot prisoners and that will put money on their books. And so I don't feel like I can say completely no to them, but I'll either pass them on to somebody or we'll put them on the site depending on the situation and how much time they've served.
It's hard to do. I can't imagine, especially after being in and knowing what people are going through inside. And when you say pot prisoners, those are people that are in prison just for marijuana.
Yeah, that's marijuana strictly. And I think it's one of the most insulting things that it just hasn't been addressed by our leaders. They make noise about it, but come on. I mean, Kamala and President Biden said that they would free all the pot prisoners if elected. They were elected. It's not difficult. They have a list. And I think the Department of Justice is always the kind of the obstacle that gets in the way. And that needs to change. It's disgusting that so many people are making money, and I can have a gummy before I go to bed tonight, which I often do. And people are languishing and suffering during COVID, during a historic pandemic. And we have some cases like Donald Fugit and Lance Glore just has had COVID, and Tracy Glore, his mother, has just called me crying. What can we do? What can we do? I think he's going to die. He had to crawl to the phone, had to have somebody help him get to the phone to even talk to her. And, now Carla Lunsford is so upset because Donald Fugit has COVID. It's just, it's so much, to carry in your heart, but it doesn't even have to be this way.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be.
Oregon, there's dispensaries on there's the more dispensaries than
There's a Starbucks
anything
on
else.
every corner
There's
and
more
a dispensary on every
than
corner
Starbucks.
too.
It's like,
Yeah.
So I have a question that I've asked you recently about not everyone that's been incarcerated comes out and does advocacy work, does any kind of reform work. Some people just want space and distance from this experience. And both of you are doing that different, along with so many other people that we've talked to on our show. So do you feel a sense of responsibility for going through the experience you did, meeting all the incredible people incarcerated that you did? Is that why you guys do what you do? You feel this responsibility to fix problems in the criminal legal system that you've experienced yourself? Or what would you say it is
I'll let Amy answer that first.
that maybe is why you guys do what you do versus somebody else choosing to just kind of, get some distance and work at a job that has nothing to do with this?
I'm curious to see what Amy says about that.
Well, when you're in prison, you do a lot of soul searching. And sometimes you also have to come to terms with the fact that even if you don't believe that you're guilty of everything that they accused you of, because let's face it, they get real loose with the allegations and the charges and the pre-sentence report that you read, and you don't even really recognize, are they talking about me here? I mean, what? Sure. And, but I did run around and I collected money. It was not, a lot of it was drug proceeds. I knew what I was doing. And so I actually did more, I feel, than a lot of the women I met on the compound. I had a roommate once, and all she did, she was going to college, and her college roommate asked if she would give her mother a ride because her mother's car was broken down. Now, remember that, because I'm going to circle around to it. And her name is Brenda Valencia. She's on Facebook. I don't think she minds me mentioning it because eventually she was on 60 Minutes. And just because she gave her roommate's mother a ride and she was picking up money from a drug deal, Brenda got 10 years mandatory minimum. And the people who go to trial are usually the ones who feel that they were wronged. I don't know whether she knew the woman was picking up drug money, but the person who gets caught red-handed will cooperate much easier than the one who was just an ancillary, low-hanging fruit, or wasn't even involved in selling drugs. She wasn't a drug dealer, wasn't involved. If her roommate had asked somebody else on that day, that person would have got. How can it be so capricious and arbitrary that your life is completely destroyed? Whatever you had is gone. You can't keep making your car payment. You can't show up to work, and your hopes and dreams going to college. She got into college, and all of that is gone in an instant, and you're in a prison cell. So it broke me down. I mean, it really broke me down seeing Children's Day, where the mothers who are devastated every single day of their life. I didn't have that burden because I don't have children, but I would just cry looking at that moment when the mothers had to pull away from the children, and the children had to go home, and they're clinging to their mothers. And I said so many times, I was just like, God, if you just help me, connect the dots. I always said I would do the work. I went to the law library all the time. People in prison called me crazy. They thought I was obsessed. The BOP staff made fun of me. And, but I just had a really strong connection. And I think when you go to your knees, or you're kind of forced to rely on God and faith. Maybe that's why this happens. I don't know. I struggle all the time to try to understand, why do people have to suffer? Good people have to suffer. So I made a lot of promises to God that if you just work with me and guide me and help me, get home, I will devote my life to helping expose the draconian laws, the stories that I was hearing every day. I helped people in the law library. I wouldn't say no to people, because I felt like if I said no to them, then, why is God going to help me if I don't help other people? I wouldn't do their legal work, but I would show them how. I would type letters, I would write letters, I would do BP9s for people. And I think this is just a continuation after I got out of prison. Plus, Allison, as I said to you the other day, I do get satisfaction just being a thorn in the Department of Justice's side. I don't know. There just really is, when you do have a victory and when you do help somebody who comes home, you're on the right side of history. And I just like, being like, okay, there.
It's this flip between, like on your knees and like working really hard for others. And then, there's that satisfaction, which is so true.
I think that's when it's to be a good thorn. And
Yeah.
I love that little edge and that little push and that challenge. I know I love to like push and
You
challenge
that
and
way. Totally. You would have been that way. Totally.
So I really can resonate with, there's a little fun satisfaction in it.
Yeah.
Do you have something to add to that idea of the responsibility once you got out?
Well, I was so surprised that there was so much trauma in prison. I had no idea. I just thought, you go to prison for doing something bad. I was guilty for what I did. And so I just was so shocked of all the trauma. The women, I was in Carswell, so there was a supposed medical center, yet people would write kites to medical to say, hey, I have, sexual abuse in my family. I really, while I'm here, would like to get some, assistance with that. And I would see, they would write down, there's no assistance for that. So I'm shocked that there's constantly all these women. And I remember telling my mom, if you take everyone out of here that has major trauma, there wouldn't be very many people in here. And that just floored me. And I think the fact that I think my personality wants to expose justice and truth. And I felt like I wasn't going to share when I got out. I've said that a million times, but then just the connections I've made by doing so fills me up to a depth that I've never experienced as a business owner, as someone who had a fancy house and stuff. The way I feel now is so filled up because of all the connections, because if I can be honest about my shameful experience, perceived shameful experience, I say that now, then that's a good
new word.
I caught that.
Of you.
Thank you. Thank you. So then, because everybody has stuff that they're not happy or proud about that they've done. So if I can go first, then that's where I think we breed connection, and that's what humans need. And I made a lot of promises to God too. Mine was, I don't remember what they were about, like mine was
trouble.
I'm living in it. Mine was really just to be honest and true to myself.
Of service. I say that a lot.
Of service.
Did you do that?
Well, when I got out, I had lost everything, like you had said, house and cars and all that car. And I just knew that the thing that I could offer the world, so I didn't have so much shame, was to be of service and to be a light in someone's life. I just wrote that every morning so I could say, okay, at least I can have that to offer. So I didn't feel so terrible. And I offered that, and I still offer that.
Check. Thine own self be true.
Yeah, there it is.
When I saw your quote, I was like, oh yeah, I loved it. Yeah, you're right. And I was never that way before so much. It's a good way to be.
Should we move into where my favorite, I love this I love this question
Yeah,
so much.
sure.
Amy, let's take you back to like little blonde pigtails in 5th grade. What kind of girl were you back, maybe socially, and also that you're in your home dynamic when you were like 10 years old? What was your role in those places?
Tomboy, farm girl, was raised on a farm in Arkansas, and always wanted a horse. So I had a couple of horses, and I I didn't realize it at the time, but later we had a basketball team I grew up in a small town, Charleston, Arkansas. And so when they decided to have a basketball team, oh my God, that was my love. And all I cared about was basketball. And, I would study enough to, I still graduated with the honor, as an honor student, but I don't know, the bar was pretty low. It was kind of low in Arkansas. It wasn't like, I never read the Diary of Anne Frank, which should be something that everybody should have to read in high school. I didn't read it until I was in prison. And I'll also never forget when I closed that last page of the Diary of Anne Frank. I just boohooed, because that was a moment where I thought, my God, she was so pure and beautiful, and yet she didn't have that redemption. And I questioned, I questioned myself, because I had plenty of opportunities to cooperate, and that just wasn't something I was going to do. And so I was relying on my faith in God. And when I closed that last page, I just thought, why do I think I'm special? Just look what happened to Anne Frank. But going back to 10 years old, and then really all the way through 1 year college, I went to college, and, my family was poor. They didn't have, excess money to spend. And I felt a responsibility to them, because I really didn't know what I wanted to major in. I didn't really have any direction. And photographer with the Arkansas, I think it was the Arkansas Gazette or something like that, wanted to use me as a subject to take some pictures. And then he encouraged me, he said, you should try to model. So I went to my birth city, which is Dallas, Texas, to see if I could get some modeling gigs. But my core was, I just didn't want my parents to be out the expense of putting me through college when I really didn't know. I didn't know what it was that I wanted to do. Maybe journalism was something that I kind of regret that I didn't try to major in. My mom was the editor of the newspaper, and so that would have been kind of a natural segue. So I must say that sometimes, maybe there's like some destiny in our lives, even for those who don't know you want to be a doctor or a singer or whatever it is at a young age, which we've seen many people who kind of knew at a very young age what they wanted to do. Because I didn't really find my purpose until I was in prison. And then, it just fills you up, like you were saying, Christy. It's like something that moves you, and you just go, oh my God, you can't even believe, number one, that it's happening, and that our nation kind of turned into the world's largest gulag. I still think that people don't really quite understand it, because I feel that if they did, there would be such public outcry to end the drug war in particular, but mass incarceration. But until it touches you, you do not understand it, and you won't understand it.
Can you imagine if they had on the ticker tape on TV all about incarceration and how many years and how much it's costing America to have a pot prisoner in there? There would be outrage. You know what I mean? Like they do about COVID, because even my people that, are in California that aren't touched by it, they can't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
They can't, you can't wrap your head around it.
Well, that's where your voice, Allison, Allison and Christy, your show is providing such a service because we can only touch so many people out here in our social circle.
Right.
And it's true, everyone that was my neighbor in Malibu, they knew nothing. And then after they heard my story, then I would be at a party or a dinner party or something at their home, and they'd say, Amy, tell the other people who were invited. And sometimes it was a little embarrassing because I'd be like, oh, this is such a big topic, I can't condense it. And then it becomes like, but I also did feel like, we all touch at least hundreds of people, and then maybe more if you have an organization or a show like yours. And I think we have a moral obligation to talk about it and to share it with our friends and our family members, our uncles. Everybody, is touched by that ripple effect, just like a rock dropping in the water. And over time, I do think we have the momentum on our side. I think we've got a lot of momentum on our side. However, as I was saying to you, Allison, that you just mentioned a little bit earlier, for the people who don't know, and there's so many who still don't, when they watch the news and when we're hearing things about crime is up, it's frustrating because then that clouds the movement where we're trying, and it's not just prisoners. I mean, so many people, white collar, drug offenders, but so many people are in there under draconian mandatory minimum sentencing laws. But the conspiracy law is the catch-all net that grabs, family members or, a grandmother whose grandson is peddling some drugs out of the house. And so, for that reason, I'm frustrated when we hear the news, because we've been trying to get on mainstream news for the longest time to share our stories. Try it. Try getting on the Today Show in the morning to talk about even the pot prisoners that are serving life. It's very difficult. They're not interested. But when crime has an uptick, or they can show scenes of, a drive-by, then the public is sort of, I feel, brainwashed into thinking that all of us are that person, or all of us are, people who committed a horrible crime, who are whining about wanting to bring people home. And it's really apples and oranges.
I just got a message from a family member in California. They said, why are they letting all the murderers out of jail? I said, what? Who's they? How do you know that that's true? All of that. And they said, oh, that's not true. I said, well, where'd you hear that? But I mean, I'm grateful that they're asking now rather than just believing it, but it's a scare tactic,
Yeah.
So that's what they think about and get concerned about. But when you talk about a story like yours, they just can't believe it. And it's almost like it's a little too scary to fathom that your country would do such a thing. So maybe that's just a 1 or 2 or 3 incidences that you're seeing, and then that's it. Because what do? There's not a lot of people that really jump on the bandwagon. You did, though. I'm proud of you. Thank you.
Well, and I had no idea about this world, although I was just young when my father went to prison, and and it was kept very separate from my home life because I was living with my mom and my stepdad and my siblings. And so it was separate. It wasn't anything we talked about, and it wasn't anything that I knew to, delve into and understand better. My dad also lived in so much shame that he never did talk about it once he even got out. Every relationship in his life was strained. The shame took over to the point where he passed away, and nobody knew it for a few weeks because he couldn't allow himself to rise above, rise out, see the good in himself,
see the humanness in himself.
Yeah, and allow and receive forgiveness. And I was still really young when all that was. I was in college when he got out, and I wish now I could have, it'd be nice to have gone back and been able to have really loving, understanding conversations with him. And maybe that makes me emotional right now. Maybe that's where my heart starts to come in with this show is, I can sit and talk to our guests and
Mm.
love and listen to your
Yeah.
story and understand you. When we talked to Jimmy Romans and he was talking about being a father and getting out and talking to his, now restarting a relationship with his children, as a daughter, all I could do is say, yes, keep doing that. That is your priority, is to reestablish that relationship with your kids. And maybe that's where this all comes from for me.
I think so.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just the kind of person you are, with that heart and that curiosity and then non-judgmental aspect after going through something hard yourself.
And when you guys were talking about, I know next time we'll have Kleenex here.
Similar tissue.
When
I'm
we,
proud of you, Allison.
thank you, Amy.
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought. I'll get back to it. I forget. That's okay. But let's, because of time, and I'm the
Yes.
time girl.
Yeah, good.
You've started talking a little bit about it, Amy, and I thought we could keep going on, maybe for our audience that isn't super familiar with these terms that they hear on the news, that we hear from the White House, and we just don't understand the terms very well. I'm super fascinated by it, and it's kind of what we're already talking about. So as hard as it's going to be, Amy, can we do like a 2-minute summary of a few subjects that I want to help our audience understand better?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start back in the day with the 80s and the 90s, when the big tough on crime, drug war, say no to drugs, that whole world happened, and what the fallout that they didn't have foresight to know was going to happen.
Or care.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people, and I just did a sort of a big project with the news station on the 50th anniversary of the drug war. And we got 50 testimonials from people who've been impacted, and released one every day, clear up till New Year's. And, but it really hasn't been 50 years of a drug war, because the drug war was introduced by Nixon. And I know that's the timeline where they started, but it went away. And let's face it, drugs were everywhere in the 70s and the 80s. And it was a different drug war during his era. Even if you got caught with drugs, and let's say it was possession, and you're a first offender, you got probation only. They didn't put you in a hot seat and tell you that you have to tell us where you got these drugs and become a confidential informant and, set people up. And certainly during the Ford and Carter administration, there wasn't a drug war. But during the Bush-Reagan administration, it was resurrected and put on steroids. And that's where we have, the modern day drug war that we have now. Well, the conspiracy law was expanded in '89. The Supreme Court even went so far as to say that you don't even have to do one overt act. You can just have a conversation. And if you have a conversation, that's enough, because it's just a meeting of the minds. And so I think the Department of Justice really saw an opportunity. They also did RICO, where they could get to these mafia figures, so that if they could get somebody low down the chain, they could force them to work up the chain. And then mandatory minimums came into play in the 80s, where we took the judge's ability to judge. Therefore, I don't even think they should be called judges anymore. They're just prosecutorial aides. Although, fortunately, in the last decade or more, we have rolled back some of these laws so that judges can use their discretion to some degree. But it's been very, very hard to move that ball up a very steep hill. So we had the conspiracy law come in around 89, mandatory minimums, I think around 84, 85, the sentencing guidelines, where judges just look at a chart and they say, well, there was this many drugs based on testimony, not on seizures. So co-conspirators are bailing out of trouble, and they take the witness stand, and they were threatened and incentivized to increase the amount of drugs. And then quite often the prosecution would would at the time of sentencing say, okay, well, we got somebody to testify that there was, 2 kilos of cocaine. And then we're going to multiply that because they implied that, oh, I don't know, about every other week. And then they will attribute all of that cocaine multiplied by a weekly so-called shipment. So it's referred to as ghost dope because it's all just talk.
Yeah.
And then even if you were low man on the totem pole, you're sentenced for all the drugs, not just what they can attribute to you. You maybe, they never said that I moved drugs or that I sold drugs, but I was held responsible for 3 million tablets of MDMA that my husband manufactured. He cut a deal, came back from Germany to Waco, Texas, to the same judge that sentenced me to 24 years, and he got 3 years probation because he snitched everybody out. So it's not about putting the bad people away.
I was going to bring that up, but I'm glad you did.
That is so, like, people can't wrap their brain around how devastating that is. But and that's not an anomaly in regard to a situation. I mean, women, that happens to so many women that I was with that had so many years for very similar situations. Wow.
And you said, they were like, come on, Christy, tell. Everybody tells.
Oh,
and
said
you were like,
everybody
I
tells.
can't do it. And Amy, you were the same. You were like, I won't speak for you, but the women are the ones that they come after.
Well, because they said they'll give him 20 years or they say someone was going to get all the time. It's going to be you or him that's going to get the 20 years.
Isn't that crazy?
Before, and so, and I mean, he was real. There was just another gal in prison that helped me make the decision, helped me be okay with making the decision that I'm not going to do that, because I didn't just walk into the situation blindly. I knew what I was doing, so I'm not going to do that to somebody else. And so he's, no one told, which he was shocked at, but I don't know how many people do tell, but I think that they do. And then that.
Yeah. And I honestly, because I'll never forget us, gosh, now it's been about 7 years ago. I was at an event and it was a circle of women and we were all there to talk. And, I was just trying to explain how I got 24 years, and you get 24 years if you go to trial. You get 20 to life, usually, sometimes 10. But I was just trying to explain it. And, and so I got to that point that if you don't cooperate, and then somebody jumped up and said, we don't want to make anybody here feel uncomfortable. And, everybody's story is different. Everybody's situation is different. I just couldn't do what they wanted me to do. And, and I don't judge, but when I was in the Waco County Jail, I got chickenpox. And so they put me in the solitary confinement room that had a hospital bed. And it was awful. And Waco is not, it's maybe if you want to be on the lowest totem pole of, places where you can land, I think Waco would be kind of at the top of that list. But the jailer popped my door open and let, I think he was a DEA agent. He was at my home for the first ransacking when I was thrown in the proverbial hot seat. And he was the designated good guy because he was blonde and a little better, like he wasn't as rough looking as some of them. And so he was the one, when they first busted into my home in Los Angeles, who kneeled down, squared me eye to eye and said, we're your friends. And they were destroying my home. I mean, you can't even believe what was going on in the kitchen and the noise, and everywhere I looked, things were broken. My furniture was all upside down. And all I remember is just thinking, what kind of evil is in my home right now? I mean, I knew I was surrounded by evil energy, but to sit there and start talking to you and he put his fingers on my knee. So when he touched me, I just felt repulsed. And for him to say, we're your friends, and we know that you met with your husband in Germany, and we just want you to answer some questions. We need you to work with us. And you're in hot water. If you don't, you're looking at 20 to life, blah, blah, blah. It just became like that monotone blur where I had to just look at the floor and tone them out. Well, fast forward 2 years later, they did indict me. They lived up to their promise. And I'm in this quarantine. And you're not supposed to allow anybody from the prosecution's team have access to you. I had a court-appointed attorney who was horrible, but regardless, he came to serve the forfeiture papers for everything that they had seized. And, they take, everything, even if it's legitimate income, out of your bank account. Mm-hmm. And even he said, he goes, "We don't want to prosecute you, Amy. Why are you being so stubborn?" So even in Waco with the chicken pox, I was like, I still had an opportunity. And he's like, we don't want to prosecute you. We want, why are you being so stubborn? Why won't you work with us? And I just think there's this crazy disconnect between them and us, of them thinking that this should be so easy for people. What, to take your situation and pass it on to somebody else so that they have to suffer? Because I don't believe in that. I don't think that you can advance yourself in life and society and business or anything if you have to hurt another individual for you to get into a better place. And so, even in Waco, again, going to go back to God. Book landed in my hand in Waco, and kind of like the woman that helped you, maybe that's what had to happen or was sent to you. But I got Henry David Thoreau's Walden Pond, and in the back of it was a copy of Civil Disobedience. And if people haven't read Civil Disobedience, they should, because it says there's unjust laws. And do we obey an unjust law, or do we rebuke it? Because why were we given a conscience if we are not supposed to use our conscience? And that gave me my answer right there in the Waco County Jail. I was just like, well, I prayed to God. I said, send me a sign, and I got a copy of Civil Disobedience, and then that was all.
And no one can argue with that.
We're gonna move through really quick because we have a fun little thing at the end. Never enough time.
I know, we could just sit here and pull up a bed.
Amy, what's next for you? I mean, you've been at this for over 20 years. And like you said at the very beginning, that word capacity, we are just one person that can only hold and do so much to be world changers. And you're doing it, but what's next? I mean, I don't know that you want to do this when you're 85, and you probably want to go lay on a beach somewhere at some point.
Take a nice vacation.
So what could you share about that? What are your dreams for what's next?
For Amy.
For Amy, not for the problems that exist. Yeah.
I honestly, I want to be in a healthy relationship. And I am going through a divorce. Sadly, I could tick off a number of people in criminal justice reform who've gotten divorced. And it's, I think, very difficult sometimes for our spouses when we get so consumed and we immerse ourselves in. And then there's also that pressure, because clemency sometimes is happening and sometimes it isn't. So sometimes you have some breathing space and sometimes you don't, because when they ring the bell and there's something going on, you have a responsibility to the people that have come to you asking for help. Then you have to balance it with your personal life. And I have to say my health has suffered. I don't have very much muscle tone anymore from sitting at this computer. And I really have to get my health in shape. I want to have, a personal life, but more importantly, I want to travel the nation, and I want to go meet the people that all the way, back to the Obama administration that I've helped and have been on the Can Do website, but I've never met them in person. And there's so many people. And the longer that that gulf is from when you communicated with them on core links to not having time to stay in touch with them, because once people are home, my focus is always like, okay, these people got left behind. And one thing I want to say real quickly, unless you're doing this work, I don't think anyone can, I've never experienced extreme joy and extreme sadness at the exact same moment. And when the Obama list would come out, some of our people would be on it and then some weren't. And I got a horrible migraine once because, I was screaming and happy for the ones that came home. And then I just knew how those people felt who weren't on the list repeatedly over and over again. And you can't, so I even went to a therapist, and the therapist said, remain in gratitude. Hold that other stuff out. You can't let it suck you in. Just go, okay, these came home. We're happy about them. Still going to keep fighting for the other ones. And that helped me tremendously. So I want to kind of share my focus with hitting the road if this COVID thing will ever end, and which it will, and go meet people that I've yet to be able to break bread with and sit down and have a meal with. And
you need any road trip wing women?
Yeah.
We're your girls.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm trying to do a little, like a conference with people that we've had on our show and meeting, and we're trying to do a whole big conference.
That would be great.
We also want so badly to go and sit face to face with all of our guests. There's so many amazing people, which we might get to do our first one next weekend.
Yeah. And I can't imagine writing people for so long and
years
and not meeting them, and then being so happy for the ones that get out. And then you're like, oh, but you're still there. That's a lot of traumatic emotion.
We want that to happen for you. What a
we're going to stay on you about
speak
that.
of gratitude, like being able to do a trip like that and do all that would be a great maybe bookend or pause or whatever it looks like work. So
and I want to mention too, I know time, but I'm just saying that it's pretty interesting that Amy chooses that rather than I think I'm going to go to the Maldives.
It's woven in her.
It's woven in. Yes, I understand
the tapestry of her now.
I understand.
You can't get rid of that anymore.
That's what will make me happy. I mean, what are you going to do on the beach? You're going to get a sunburn. So, you can go walk on the beach for a little while, but then there's the next day. And, we do take little timeouts, but yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. I know the time.
Well, I don't want to stop there.
I know.
You're the one.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm holding.
Before we end, because we didn't even get through all the things I wanted to talk about, which just means she's going to have to come back.
Yeah.
That's right.
Can we do our speed round right now?
Oh yeah. So we have a quick speed round. This is just a 1 or 2 word answer. Okay. Okay. Where's the last place you flew to?
DC.
Okay. Are you a morning or night person?
Oh, night. I'm very nocturnal. If I don't take something to help me go to sleep, I will stay up till 4, sometimes 5. Yeah, it's bad.
Mountains or beach?
Oh gosh, I would have to flip a coin. I love them both. I'm in California because I love the water. I need to be near the water, but lakes are what I grew up on, which are usually in the mountains. So water skiing and everything. So I like them both pretty much equally.
And we're in the mountains, so if you want to come to
and we're big hikers.
We're big hikers.
Right.
What's your hidden talent?
Oh, well, I actually can sing pretty good.
Oh.
If I put my mind to it. No, I can't hit every note, but I can belt out a good Amazing Grace.
Oh, I can just imagine hearing that in prison. Wow, that's great. Okay, what's a product that you can't live without? Any product?
Oh gosh, I think it would have to be face cream, night cream. I gotta have some moisture on my face.
Of course. Oh gosh, mascara.
Mine is Aquaphor.
Aquaphor, really? Oh yeah, I used to use it.
Like on my lips, on anything. I love Aquaphor.
Yeah.
Are you someone that prefers a phone call or a text?
I At the tech stage now. I hate to say it, but I just every minute in your life is so valued. And I have a few friends who like to chat on the phone, just chit chat. And, before you know it, a whole hour can be gone. And I hang up and I'm like, what did we accomplish? We didn't really accomplish anything. But I love the connection to people.
I have friends that live in different states and farther away. So we do walk talks and we call for an hour, but we walk the whole time. So there you go. That will help part of
I haven't done that
your
before.
desk sitting issue.
I like that. I like that idea.
Yeah.
I need
On a
that.
scale of 1 to 10, how cool are you? We already
Oh my gosh. I don't know that I'm cool at all. So
we can answer
We
that for
disagree.
you. If you'd like. 10 for sure.
10 plus.
I'm a goober.
What
Good.
compliment do you get the most?
I think people think that I'm generous. I try to be generous with my time. I try to listen. I try to find out what people, what it is that they're saying that they need help with. And I have a hard time saying no. So sometimes maybe I'm a little too generous with my time and then others suffer. So I want to learn to balance that. My New Year's resolution every single year is learn to, when somebody says, will you do this? Learn to say, let me think about it and get back to you.
That's a great one.
It's the pause.
And my last question, can I ask one more?
Yeah.
Okay. My last question will help with that. If someone offered you free time, what would you have them do? If they said, I have 40 hours this week for you, Amy, what would you like me to do?
40 hours of free time?
Wouldn't that be great?
I would love for somebody to come to my place and help me get organized. Oh my God. If you
my
could
daughter.
see this room, it's horrible. Just need to get organized. And some people are great organizers. I'm not. I'm a clutter bug. And so I've got stuff all over, boxes everywhere, file cabinets that need, I need an organizer. I need an administrative assistant.
Oh, yes.
All right. So if anyone heard that out there, who wants to
Oh.
work with an amazing person and you want to donate some time, that'd be amazing.
Bam,
Bam.
bam.
Okay.
Bam.
So we are going to wrap up, unfortunately, but we're going to put in our show notes all of the things that you're doing and ways that people can check out what Amy Povah is up to.
And
What
to
else do you do?
donate, it's a lot of work. So
To the
anytime
foundation.
someone can donate.
Yeah, I don't get funding. I don't have a benefactor. I've never had time to file, grants or chase funding. So the little donations that trickle in really do help us tremendously because I don't take a salary. Lisa Jacoby and Karen Morrison and Enrica Caldwell and Malik, everybody is a volunteer. Everybody, well, Lisa, I try to help when I ask her to help with some petitions and some motions and stuff. But anyway, I know we're wrapping up and I'll let you guys take it from here.
We'll put it in the show notes because we want people to be able to have all that information. And
Yes, and if anyone wants more information, we have a website, thefreedomexchangeproject.com. And thank you guys for being with us on our first studio. Thank you, Amy.
Congratulations. I'm so excited for you.
So much. We love you.
I'm super honored that you said yes. Thank you.
No, it's great. You guys are doing a wonderful service.
Thank you, Amy. We will talk to you soon.
Okay.
Okay. Bye, Amy.